I am Mike Tuckner, intuitive business coach and host of the Recalibrated Mind Podcast, where we help you find peace, joy, passion, and prosperity in your life. Our topic today is on how to use your intuition to find your real truth. My guest today is Long Island psychic medium Leah Clare. Leah has an extraordinary array of intuitive gifts: clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, and claircognizance. She seamlessly collaborates with spiritual and angelic guides to illuminate her clients' paths, empowering them to rediscover their authentic selves and navigate their unique life journeys. Hi, Leah. Thanks so much for joining me. How are you today?
I'm very good. How are you?
I am great. And we've had quite the adventure just getting started today. And maybe you could share with us right off the bat your little intuitive feeling to grab the paper towels when
for some reason, I had this urge to, and I said to my guides every morning, I invite you to intervene in my life to see fit and light and love for my highest good. And they said, grab paper towels. And I said, okay, headed into the podcast. There were some technical difficulties. And in the midst of that, I had a mug of tea that spilled all over my desk and my computer. It was a lot because my mug was full, but thank God thank my guides and angels that I had my paper towels around, because I immediately just started sopping it up so nothing could get into my electronics. Thank you.
Oh, you can't.
The powers that be.
You can't make
Can't make it out. Can't make it out.
So, perfect timing, I guess, for the topic of the day. So to put it lightly, we are living in challenging times right now, right? The noise can be overwhelming. And with so many voices providing us with, information and misinformation, it can be difficult to separate fact from fiction. Luckily, as humans, we are built with built-in the ultimate BS detector, and it's called intuition. And I can't imagine a better person to talk to give us advice on how to reach that still quiet voice within ourselves than you. That's just perfect for us. So can you discuss how we reach our intuition and the importance of trusting it?
Yes, absolutely. And I want to say that we all have it. It's actually built into our DNA, and it's found throughout the animal kingdom. If you think about monarch butterflies, in one lifetime, no one has ever told them how to migrate from North America down to Mexico, or for the birds that matter, that can fly in unison, schools of fish who suddenly will change direction without having any form of communication that we can interpret, I should say. But it is found throughout the animal kingdom, and it is there to protect us. It came in very handy, if you can imagine, as we were the first humans sitting around a fire in a social circle, but not feeling quite right, feeling like maybe there's a threat, or maybe there are eyes on us, that maybe was a saber-toothed tiger ready to pounce on us, right? I mean, this probably happened, and it was very helpful for us to feel like something wasn't right, that we were in danger. And even to this day, you might know when you encounter someone that you've never met before, that they don't feel right, that they might have malintent toward you. These signs of our intuition, and all of us have it, although it does come through in different ways. Like, for example, you mentioned my clairs, that's what they're called. But basically, these are heightened senses that we have. Do we feel like a gut feeling in our bodies when something is off or wrong? Or do we maybe know? That would be claircognizance. Feeling in the gut feeling would be clairsentience. Maybe you are seeing signs or symbols or numbers. That can be clairvoyance. Or maybe you hear in your head, maybe it's your own voice that you hear in your head, or maybe it's you're connected with your guides and angels, or maybe it's God or Jesus for some people. That is clairaudience. So we do all have these different ways that we can interpret messages that we need to know to keep us safe. And you're right, in this day and age, where we are in the information age, or now it seems like maybe the misinformation age, especially as I'm seeing more and more AI
Right.
that is being shown not only in news stories, but even just in these crazy videos that I'm seeing online. There are going to be people that think that that's real.
That
And
is
then yes, it's very scary. And then what will our perception be of reality? And it's more important than ever to rely on our intuition to know what's real and what's not real.
I really like the way that you break that down on the, the animal kingdom level. And I just watched The Americas, the Tom Hanks documentary about nature that's on NBC right now. And
I want to see that.
They actually had a part about the monarch butterflies, that they knew how to fly right to this village in Mexico every year, and how a butterfly can fly that far and with no meaningful brain of any kind to, put them that way. It is very fascinating. And another thing that I noticed too, my girlfriend and I have had this conversation a lot, that two people could say the exact same thing to you, but with one person, it makes you feel kind of weird and yucky or whatever. But with the other person, you're like, oh yeah, totally get it. The exact same words, but delivered differently. Your body has that interpretation mechanism to say, I don't want to spend any more time around that person, or this is somebody that I need around more. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but we all have that ability.
Yes, discernment. It's knowing what is coming from a place of good intent and what is coming from a place of malintent. Some people call it good and evil. Mm-hmm. Some people call it light and shadow, but we are able to use our extra sensory perception to interpret that information, to know who to trust and who not to trust.
So how do we kind of separate those voices? Because we have the ego is in our head trying to keep us safe, telling us all kinds of things that may or may not be good for us. But then how do you shut that voice up and find the one that's going to give you the best advice?
Yeah. So again, in this day and age of the information age and tech, it is harder than ever to be able to quiet down all of the sensory overload. More people than ever are having ADD and ADHD because there's so much information all of the time. Our productivity has gone up and more is expected of us both at work and at home because we can do more throughout the day. And some of us squeeze every single possible moment of that time to get more information, whether it's even recreationally or for work purposes. And what we need to do is be able to connect with that part of ourselves that is our intuition. How do we do that? We have to be able to quiet what Buddha called the monkey mind. Okay. We can get into really technical terms a bit, but the brain is divided into two different hemispheres, the right and the left. The right dictates creativity and your left side of your body and arts and your intuition. And the left side controls your logic, your reasoning, the information coming in. And it's about trying to quiet that side of the brain so that you can delve into the more intuitive nature of yourself. And there are different ways that you can do that. One is by connecting with that side of the brain, maybe working with art. I know you love music. Working with music, tuning into music might help get you into that mind space of being more in your intuitive side. Primarily, and this helps in so many different ways of life and the mind-body-soul connection, is trying to meditate. And I know that's so hard for so many people, especially now, to quiet all of the constant thoughts and stimulation that comes in every single second of the day. But with practice, it's possible. And even if you can just sit for 5 or 10 minutes in quiet, that seems impossible for some people. But it's a discipline. And with discipline, you start to become more in tune with yourself and connecting with that side of yourself so that you can hear the information coming in. Because it's information that comes in. And if you're too busy thinking of something else, that information doesn't have a place to be noticed. Does that make sense?
100%. And that has definitely been my biggest struggle as I started meditating, frequently about a year ago. And my girlfriend and I took a month and went to Playa del Carmen in Mexico. The planets aligned for us to just be able to unplug and go away with very limited connections to technology, things like that. And it was really kind of the start of a journey that's led me to doing, this podcast amongst some other things. And without a doubt, the hardest part was for me when I started out was that there's laundry that needs to be done. Just random miscellaneous things just keep popping into your head that you're like, shut up. No, not that. Not now. This is not what I'm here for. And then you're waiting for something cool to happen when you're meditating and it doesn't happen because of all the chatter. So that was without a doubt the hardest part of getting into it. But now I find out that I can get there so much quicker just with the breathing, holding your breath and then releasing it. It does something to your head. You almost get kind of lightheaded a little bit, and it does seem to sort of slow you down. And then before even trying to get something positive to come out of meditation, I had to learn how to just shut everything up. And that is extremely difficult. And I think that a lot of people probably start that process and give up too soon, wouldn't you think?
Yes. And for those people, tell them that meditation is not just sitting still. There are other ways to meditate. And one of the methods of meditating or sects of meditation is mindfulness. And for mindfulness is basically staying in the very present moment. And if you think about it, if you're staying in the present, that's when you're going to connect with your soul, right? But mindfulness is staying in the present moment. So you don't necessarily just have to sit and when the mind goes off on tangents, which is natural, by the way, it happens to everybody. It's just the way our brains work. When that happens, we recenter on the breath and we try to, again, calm the mind. Every single time it happens, that's what we can do. That's the discipline that we are trying to get into the practice of calming that mind. But you can do mindfulness even as you are sitting at your desk at work and you're thinking of what are 5 things that I can see at this moment. And just focus on 5 things. And another time you might want to do, what are 5 things that I can hear in this moment? So that's one way of what are 5 things that I can feel. Can I feel the air? Can I feel the air coming through my nose and my nostrils? Can I feel the sensations of my body against the surface I'm sitting on, et cetera, et cetera. Another way of doing mindfulness is while you're eating, to eat slowly, to taste all of the different flavors and textures in your mouth, to swallow it, to feel how that food feels going down your body. That's another way of meditation. Some people do it with running or walking or exercising. As they are doing that, they are trying to focus on what is it that they're experiencing at that very moment and trying to focus everything else out. Mm-hmm. It's disciplining the mind to focus on the present. And as we all know, especially with the news and everything that's going on, where they can be catastrophizing some things that are happening, it's very good to recenter ourselves and stay in the present moment.
You just used my favorite word, catastrophizing. When I'm coaching or dealing with other people, I feel like so often I'm trying to talk somebody off the ledge, right? And the way I like to explain it is that everything that's happened in the past, whether it's good or bad, right, is now just a thought. It's got no real bearing on what I can or can't do with my life today. But we all have these loops that play back and forth, and people in the military that have PTSD, people that had childhood trauma, maybe a bad car accident, that those loops stop you from living in the now. And then on the flip side is anxiety, where you look at every future problem that could possibly happen and then bringing it into the present, so you deal with it, even though it'll probably never happen. And an analogy that I like to use is that, let's say you're terrified of sharks, right? And what you do is you say, well, I'm terrified of sharks, so I'm going to go fishing. And you stand on the edge of the ocean and you cast out into the water, hoping that you catch a shark so that you can reel it in and it'll bite your head off. It makes no sense to reach out to the future to grab problems that don't exist and pull them in. And if you can find that place to just live right now, that's a place of peace and a place of productivity, right?
Yes. One of the metaphors that and I love your ideas there because it's so true. But one of the metaphors that I like to use with clients as well is we often try to take the easy way. And at any given moment, you always have two choices. You can either do the work that needs to be done, and it might be a very long road to get there, or you can try to take a shortcut, but life will eventually bring you back exactly around to where you were. So I like to look at it as two roads, one that is straight and long, and you could see far into the distance, but that means it's a long road to get there. And the other one is shorter and it curves around because you don't realize that even though it looks like it's the shorter road, it takes you right back around where you started. Mm-hmm. The only thing that you can do is to start down that road that looks longer, but it's actually going to be shorter because it's where you're supposed to be. Right. It's your life path. It's your life purpose. And we also get just so diverted, maybe trying to fit into what other people think that we should be, or what it is that we were trying to be to fit in sometimes, right? Or external pressures on us. And we try to just get through the pain as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. But it's an illusion. The only way forward is really to stay in the present moment and start walking that path. And you're not meant to be comfortable in situations that are not meant for you. You're meant to be uncomfortable because you're not supposed to be there. If you feel comfortable, you'll stay. Mm-hmm. And some people stay and suffer. You're not meant to suffer. You're actually supposed to get back and start walking the path that you're supposed to walk. Does that make sense?
I was just going to ask a question that I think you answered before I asked it. Is that...
Oh, psychic.
Who knew?
I must be psychic.
But, that's the challenge, isn't it? I mean, to try to figure out what our purpose is, what brings you joy. And I think that people don't look at that often. So many people are people pleasers or trying to make the people around them happy, which is ridiculous because I'm a firm believer that the only person that can make you happy is yourself. If you're not happy yourself, then nobody else is going to be able to do that for you.
There's a difference between selfish and self-care that I think a lot of people don't understand.
Right. And I think that you mentioned the catastrophizing thing, that those people that hear some piece of information and always try to figure out the worst possible outcome that could happen from anything that they hear. Instead of what if you took in information and thought, what's the best outcome for this scenario, right? And what a mind change that would have for people if they start looking at everything as a positive instead of as a negative. It's got to be a healthier way to live, right?
Absolutely. But I think it's also helpful to understand that there is a grand plan for all of us, and life will direct you if you don't take the steps yourself. And it might seem like catastrophe when that happens, but actually it's an opportunity. And fear just holds us in pain and suffering. And I know that's easier said than done for a lot of people. Maybe a lot of your viewers have PTSD, and that's a very different thing. Okay, I want to honor that and respect that, but fear still can hold them back as well. And it's always great to have a team on your side of psychologists and the VA and whatever else that they need. Life will redirect us onto the path that we are supposed to be. Like, for example, some people are in a very unhappy marriage for years, decades, and they sit there waiting for the perfect moment. And then someday, and they sit there and they suffer. And then one day their spouse says, I want a divorce. And it seems like their life is falling apart. But in reality, it's an opportunity to get out of pain and suffering and actually start maybe with a new partner that actually is a loving and healthy relationship, right? Like these are the moments where we can make lemonade from lemons, right? Like you're in a job and your job, you've been working at it, but you're miserable. You hate your job, right? Suddenly one day you get fired or laid off, and what happens, right? It's an opportunity to start doing something else that you're meant to do. Maybe you were always intended to do something else. Maybe you have skills and talent that you've been putting by the wayside that actually make you happy because you were making more money in this other job and life came and redirected you to start fresh and start doing something that you're actually intended to be doing. Everything happens for a reason. There is always a grand plan, and you're never alone. You are divinely watched over by the other side, by angels, by your guides, by God, to help you, to protect you. There's always a reason, and there's always something better. And it's really important too. I want to say, I feel very pulled to say, sometimes I'll get guidance to say certain things to certain of your listeners. It's important to remember that things will always get better, but you have to stick it through to get to that place. Because if you choose otherwise, and I'll say it that way, I hope they know what I'm talking about. If you choose otherwise, you're not helping the situation and you're not giving yourself a chance to get to that place. Sometimes all you have to do is hold on and get through the storm. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So when you deal with clients that you're doing readings for, what brings you the most joy when you're talking to a client? Obviously, information that you can bring forward can help people immensely. I know that I've had a few psychic readings that I will refer to as just life-changing. And it was like an overwhelming calm that took over. I have a line that the difference between a rut and a grave is about 3 feet. So I think at one time when I had one of my readings, I was about 5 feet deep. And after that reading, I felt so calm, so relieved, so cared for. So when you're reading for people or doing these things, is there like a theme that you would say, boy, I wish more people would know this, or or what really fires you up when you can help somebody with a certain stuckness that they have going on in themselves?
Yeah, gosh, I get so many different clients of all different walks of life and for different reasons that they're brought to me, because I help people through life doing psychic readings, and I also help connect families to their loved ones on the other side. And they're both beautiful in their own individual ways. And obviously, when you're connecting family members with loved ones on the other side, the peace and closure that they get from that is second to none. And it's just, I have so many beautiful, incredible, amazing stories with that. But for psychic readings, it is often that people can't find their way forward and they are in a lockstep. And to be able to show them the bigger picture, and oftentimes, sometimes it's just there are moments where I just know them, little claircognizance. I just know things about them that maybe nobody has ever acknowledged and really seen them before. It's a powerful connection, and it's beautiful. And to tell them that, or to show them really that they're not alone, that they have guides and angels looking out for them. And I love telling them how to connect with them so that they get real proof, real signs back that they are there, because they will communicate back with you once you start asking for them to intervene in your life, because otherwise they won't intervene. We have free will. So that's also really very powerful. But also I love the most meaningful work I think that I do is to help break people free from trauma and expectations of who they have been based on the expectations that they put on themselves, what family members put on them, maybe patterns of narcissism, even with bosses that are around them, or avoidant behavior, or the hero's journey where they feel tremendous guilt so that they need people to rely on them. They feel purpose of that. To recognize that that's not real love, that that's not healthy for them, and to really understand that they do need to love themselves, to parent and nurture themselves. What would they say to themselves if they were a kid? To love themselves as they would love their own child, and then really try to realign on that path to authentic individualism for their life purpose. That me, can change the entire trajectory and help them live, really live, not just whether they're choosing not to live or live, but live how they're supposed to live, with happiness, with authenticism, confidence, and joy in who they are. What else could you ask for? And I want to say one other thing. When we help ourselves to walk that journey, to be our true authentic selves, when we help ourselves, whether it's we are doing a job we're not supposed to be doing, or we're in a relationship where we're not supposed to be, and we instead make that choice to leave and do something that we are meant to do, whether it's going back to school and doing what we're meant to do for work, or leaving that abusive relationship and instead maybe being alone for a while, or choosing only partners that abide to your boundaries and love language. That is the most beautiful thing that we can do for ourselves. And the universe will start to place people and circumstances in our path that align with that. Once we start helping ourselves, God helps us too. The universe helps us too. Source, whatever you believe, whatever religion you are, everything starts to align.
And it just takes that mental fortitude to understand that. And I have a theory that I use a lot too, that if you pursue your passions with the highest level of pursuit that you can.
It's not easy.
It's not easy. And with the idea that you're going to do good for others in the pursuit of your highest good, whatever brings you the most joy, the most peace, the most passion, that the universe will take care of it. They will take care of you if you are true to yourself. And I think that that's the challenge, is to be true to yourself. So when you had mentioned just a little bit ago about getting signs, can you give us a little practice that people can use to ask for signs and talk to their guides that way?
Absolutely. So I will preface this by saying, once we ask for signs, we need to be aware. We need to keep our eyes open, our ears open. We need to be hyper aware to make sure that we are receiving the messages, because there are so many times that we ask for messages and we have our horse blinders on. We can't see what's going on right in front of our faces sometimes. So you can absolutely, and I like to start with angels, because angels are the easiest to work with and communicate with. And angels are not specific to any one religion. They are found in many religions. They're found in the Bible. They're found in the Quran. They're found in the Torah. There are angels in all religions. Okay. They are non-secular. And one great thing you can ask for angels to do is send you a sign. They love to send feathers. They love to give numbers. Numbers are binary code for the universe. If you think about the universe and language, English language is limited to our human bodies, but numbers are found throughout the universe. Angels love numbers. We'll talk about that in a second. They also, if you ask them for a sign maybe that they're around in the form of an angel, I want to see an angel, be careful. They're going to be creative. You might see the word angel. You might see the image of an angel. You might have some Archangel Michael pop up right in front of you, maybe in a statue or on TV or on your phone, etc. They are very handy with that. But you can also be very specific. Okay. I'll give just a simple story. Asked for an angel to know what I needed to do in a situation. Within 60 seconds on TV was a commercial for some TV show called Manifest. You have to be aware of what's coming through. I needed to manifest. But I do want to talk about numbers specifically. Numbers can be called numerology, but it's also very often used by angels to communicate with us. And one of the first things that people notice are repetitive numbers. So like 1111, 1111, or 222, 333, 999, etc. All of these numbers do mean something, but numbers in sequence can also be an indicator that they're there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 21, 22, 23, etc. Right? But individual numbers can also carry messages. There's a website that I love. I have no tie to them whatsoever. It's just a website that I found that I like to use, and I often share this with my clients. It's called Joanne's Sacred Scribes, and it's a website that basically has an index. When you ask your guides and angels for an answer to something that you might be going through at that particular moment, you can look up a number. You might see a number right then and there on a license plate or on your phone or in an email, etc. If you look up that number, there will be a message tied to that number that you are meant to see from your angels, and they will communicate with you. And also, once you start doing meditations, you might get messages through your clairs as well. Like if you're clairvoyant, you might see them write something or hand you a book or a piece of paper. And if you in meditation look down at it, you might see their message. Or if you were clairaudient in meditation, you might hear them talk to you. Actually, what happens to a lot of people when they start to open up, and I feel like this is you too, they get pressure changes in their ears.
Okay.
So you might have it on one side. That might be the angels. I actually have, when somebody's thinking of me in the beginning, I often hear this from my clients. They'll hear it on one side, and then when it's angels, they'll feel it on another side.
Wow.
Do you ever get that?
As a matter of fact, I do. I do have ear pressure challenges, without a doubt. I had actually blown out an eardrum when I was a kid.
Oh, that'll do it too.
And I've got some hearing loss challenges through the military and rock and roll. So,
oh, music will do it too. So there is a difference between medical reasons and obviously what I'm talking about. Yeah, but and maybe that's why they were showing me you with pressure changes. Okay. But and I still think that you still do feel this way, but I feel like your guides are giving me the confirmation. Sometimes they give me the thumbs up when I have it on the head. Mm-hmm. They are giving me that confirmation. Maybe you write it off as maybe being tinnitus or something similar. Yeah. But they are still using that pressure to tell you that they're there. It's one of the first signs that people get when they start connecting with their intuition. I'm going to have to pay better attention to that. Yes. Definitely. Let me ask you this. Does spirituality and religion, do they clash? So if somebody thinks that if they're very Catholic, they're very Muslim, they're very Jewish, whatever it is, does that limit them from being able to tap into their intuition, like psychologically, probably more than anything else? Because we all have it. But do you find that some people need to say, okay, there's a place for both, or how do those two play together? It's a complicated thing, right? Because it's not just an answer that you might just have an automatic response to, because we're raised in a religion. We are told what to believe. We are threatened sometimes for what to believe. If you don't believe one thing, you're going to hell, right? If you don't believe something, you're committing a sin. So it's a complicated, very rooted belief system that can absolutely limit someone from connecting, because when you are able to connect, and what you do in meditation is you raise your vibration, okay, to light. So we talk about evil and God, right? So we talk about the light of God and the evil of shadow, but it's light and shadow, and shadow is a lower vibration, light is a higher vibration. So actually, I like to talk about it this way too. Humans are down, so evil, humans, spirits who have passed over, angels, God, right? Mm-hmm. So we have these different vibrational levels, right? And fear. So humans are usually here, angels are here, spirits are here. So let's say this, because I'm a medium, so I have to raise my vibration to work with spirits, right? Fear, anger, envy, resentment, jealousy. All of these things bring our vibration lower. So absolutely, it's very difficult to connect with these higher powers if you are rooted in fear, number one. Okay. But I think that connecting in the way that we're talking about through meditation and connecting with angels is actually confirmation that the religion is correct. Okay. I think that, and I don't want to alienate people as I talk about religion because that happens all of the time. Well, if I'm right, they're wrong.
Right.
Right. And that's what religion often teaches us. And I was raised Catholic. If we're right, the others are all wrong. Right. It's not really like that. There is a time and a place where everything kind of makes sense. Even Muslims believe that Jesus lived and that he was a prophet. Right? Even some Jewish people believe that Jesus existed, but maybe they don't believe that he was the Messiah, the Savior, right? But they don't deny that he was a man of God and all of these other things. So there is a time and a place where everything fits, okay? Even Buddhism, the practice of meditation is Buddhism, but yet it brings you closer to God. So even that fits, right? So they all do work together. And the more we can raise our vibration, the higher we get to enlightenment, to God, to Jesus, to whatever religion, to Allah. It all works together. Did that answer your question?
Absolutely. And I think that I have a very similar take on it, that the religions have more in common than they do differences.
Yes.
And religion should never be weaponized, right? Like,
yes,
all religions in their pure form are about peace, love, basically the golden rule, treat others as you'd like to be treated. But over the course of time, many battles have been fought and won and lost over, these powers. So it seems kind of like power and greed along the way kind of take their place in there. And I think that all want the same thing. We all want to live a peaceful life and to raise our kids to have a better life than we did. I think that some of those things are universal, and it's important to realize that just because somebody has a different religion, that doesn't make them our enemy. We want the same things. It's just a different kind of thought process to get there.
Yeah, so we have genetics. We are animals. We are human beings. We are souls having a human experience, not humans having a soul experience. And we are souls having a human experience. Okay, but we are in these vessels that limit us. Okay, and we try to get beyond our limitations. But one of those limitations is the need for survival. Right? So it helped us a lot to want to take power over land that might have had more resources, that might have helped our genetics to pass on. So we would have arguments and fights with other people that threatened that in our genetic line, or we wanted to have land, so we would fight over land so that we would have the water and the natural resources and the hunting and the gathering and all that kind of stuff. And it's still within us. Our default says, oh, wait a minute, somebody else is taking something that's mine, or my way is right. There are so many of us that are varied that we can't all be right. God made us all different and imperfect for a reason, and we are perfectly the way that we are supposed to be. We are supposed to be varied, and we have to overcome that. We have to recognize that that is more of our animalistic feelings versus what might be more godly, more enlightened, more on our spiritual side and our spiritual nature. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So can I ask you about vibration? So this is something that you hear the word all the time. I mean, you say this person gives off really good vibes, right? So vibration isn't necessarily a feeling like there's a motor underneath you that's running and you can feel yourself moving, but it's more of a thought process, right? Like if you're just a negative person that's always doom and gloom, and if we don't know any people personally, we certainly know them from our social media feeds, right? The people that just can't be happy, and it's like, just stop it. Is the vibration more about positive, negative thoughts, feelings, and actions? Is that really the best way to describe it, or how do you quantify or describe vibrations?
So there are several things that play into this complicated answer. Number one, there is a scale. I don't know the name of it, but there is an actual graphic out there that I can send to you later, maybe if you want to share it with your people, that shows the vibrational levels and the different emotions that bring you to different vibrational levels on this scale. Okay, so that's helpful to understand, I think, a little bit about what you're saying, is that it's more about how we feel, but it's important to recognize that energy is magnetic. And that's all this is. It's all energy. The entire universe is energy. Who we are is energy. What separates us from the table that we're sitting in front of is energy, right? Different molecular structures of energy. Negativity has an energy signature that is magnetic, and it brings in more negativity. And it's not just about this attitude about being negative, but when you might notice that sometimes when somebody is at the lowest point of their lives, and I'm sure you have some listeners that are like this, something bad happens, and then they're like, oh, like I really deserve this. And then something else bad happens. And then it gets worse and it piles onto itself. And then they're like, oh, how could this happen? I don't deserve this. Another negative bad thing happens on top of it. And it piles up very quickly. And it can be crushing, soul crushing. Okay. Mm-hmm. The one way to actually break that, and it seems counterintuitive to those people because they're so used to being in negative environments. Maybe they were raised by negative people. Maybe their families are negative and their friends are negative and they don't have money and they have bad circumstances. And maybe it's drugs and alcohol abuse and constantly things that are building up on this negativity. And you'll see, like, especially for like the drug and alcohol abuse, it's interesting because a lot of the programs to counteract that, the 12-step programs, are to start finding things to be grateful for. And that is one change and shift in energy from negative to positive.
It's gratitude.
And gratitude. And positivity is also magnetic. When you are positive and you find something to be grateful for, and there is always something to be grateful for. And I'm talking to you out there, you listener, who thinks that there's not. I want you to imagine where you are standing or where you are sitting right this very moment. What would it feel like if suddenly there was no air for you to breathe? What would happen? And then take a moment, just breathe in and breathe out. There is always something to be grateful for, even if it is just the air that you breathe. And that can start building on itself. Maybe you're grateful for that cup of coffee in the morning. Maybe you're grateful that you hit a green light. Maybe you're grateful that you hit a red light because it might have stopped you from having a car accident down the road. There's always a reason for things to happen. And when you start to recognize the positives in that situation, like I have the paper towels, right? Okay, the tea spilled, but did it cause any terrible things? Maybe we were meant to change the platform that we were talking on. Everything happens for a reason. Right. And when we start to recognize these good things and know that we are loved by our angels and guides on the other side and God, there's always things to be grateful for. And positivity will bring more positive things into your life. But you have to help yourself. It doesn't just come. We have to help ourselves. It's not like, okay, well, I'm just going to be positive. Oh, great, positive things. No, you actually have to work at it. You have to take the moment and find those things to be grateful for and believe it.
And I think hand in hand with that is the idea that bad things are often precursors to good things.
Blessings in disguise.
That next to our greatest trauma lies our greatest superpower. If we have dealt with bad things, for instance, I was sent to the Gulf War when I was 20 years old. At the time, finals were what stressed me out. In college, I'm like, oh my God, I got finals. What am I going to do? At the war, things happened that gave me a level of coping that I have still not topped out yet, 30 plus years later, right? That everything that happened since then, I know I can handle it because I saw what horror is. I saw what really bad things were. And I know that if I could survive that, I can survive anything. And I think that that's a good space to be too, is to figure out when something bad happens to go, what am I learning from this? What is my takeaway for this to turn this one into a positive? Didn't get that job that I really wanted. I wonder why. Maybe it's because you're meant to do something else that isn't necessarily just a paycheck, but something that just fills your soul every day when you go to work. You know, that maybe that's one of the things. But I think that you can get positivity even from negative situations.
Absolutely. Like I said with the divorce, sometimes life comes along and it breaks down right in front of your very eyes in a second. Life changes, and there is opportunity in the negative, seemingly negative situations. They're actually lessons in disguise to help us learn. And it's like life hands you lemons, you make lemonade. I can use an example for myself. One day I woke up and my house was flooded. I had a toilet that broke, and it was awful. And it was literally a waterfall from the second floor down to the first floor. And it was raining in the basement, like a thunderstorm raining, like raining.
Ugh.
Water everywhere. And this happened just before COVID. So to get like a crew to come in and do the house and to do all of these things and to get the materials that we needed when there was shorts on everything and everything started to go up in price, was a nightmare. But I now have almost a like new house because I had to rebuild it.
Right.
And thank God I had to find the grateful things. Thank God I had house insurance. Thank God I'm actually in a better place now. My house is worth more because I was able to redo it. I got a new kitchen and all this other stuff. I mean, it was a nightmare while I was going through it. It wasn't easy. It was hard as hell, but I ended up better for it, right? And that's a very simple version of what these catastrophic moments in life can be.
Right. I think we all have stories of things that we wish that happened that didn't, and then we ended up better on in the long run. I tell the story of a woman that I knew that was looking to buy a house on a lake, and she found the perfect house for her. It was a perfect distance from her work. The price was right. Everything about this house on paper was perfect, but she had this feeling that I can't buy this house. Something's telling me not to buy this house. I don't know why. And she's like, I can't pull the trigger on it. Well, it turned out a few months later, she saw on the news that house got struck by lightning and burned to the ground. I
Whoa.
mean, is that like a step back that you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't see it at the time, but yeah, I'm pretty glad that I didn't pull the trigger on that house, right?
Oh my gosh. And I think that's absolutely, we know when that gut feeling is there, right? We know that gut feeling that says, no, stay away. But there's also this tiny feeling sometimes that says, you know what, maybe you're not worth buying the house. Maybe something's going to go wrong because when things in our life always went right, something went wrong. So we have to be careful of that limiting belief voice in our head to learn when it's limiting beliefs versus intuition too.
To tell we aren't supposed to have good things.
So there are some people that have that voice where it stops them from being happy too. And I just wanted to mention that because that can happen to people and it can stop you from living a happier life. And that's a limiting loop that you can go over and over again. But I'm sure that she felt it differently in the body. These things that I'm talking about, they might seem elusive to the average person, average, who's really normal, but normal is subjective. But there is a different feeling that you might feel. And the more you get into this discipline and practice of connecting to your higher self, your soul, versus your ego, which is circumstances of who you actually are, you can tell these differences once you start really connecting to yourself at the soul level.
And that's actually a really good point. So, I mean, we kind of discussed the idea of quieting your mind, getting to that space where you can ask yourself the questions to get the answers that your intuition can provide. But sometimes your intuition is going to tell you something you don't agree with, and you don't know why. And so what do you do when you get negative answers that go against what you think, this is what I want to do, but your intuition is telling you no? How do you discern that and balance those challenges?
It happens to all of us, right? We want to stay safe at all costs. And it's very common to question the intuition that might come through. You try to justify it. You try to be skeptical. Well, I don't know. I have a bad feeling getting on this airplane. Something's going to happen. What of that is fear and what of that is actual intuition, right? So we don't want to limit ourselves and we want to always try to keep ourselves safe. What was your original question, actually? The question was, just what do you do when your intuition is guiding you to do something else?
Right. Like when your intuition tells you no. You're like, should I buy this car that I love, that I really want, that's fast, and it's got a good price on it? and I love the look of it, but should I buy this vehicle? And your intuition's like, no, dude, move on.
Yeah, I think that we can get in our own way, and it is important to follow intuition. Intuition is always going to protect you. It's meant to protect you. Like, that's why we were meant to feel when somebody was thinking badly of us, or that maybe there was a saber-toothed tiger ready to pounce on us. Intuition is always there to help us, and we have free will. We do not have to follow the guidance that comes in. And that intuition might be us talking, it might be our guides talking, it might be God talking. It's only going to help us. Because maybe your intuition is saying not to buy that car or not to go and buy that house, right? But later on, something is going to happen that will make it all worthwhile that you followed your intuition in the first place. I did have some other thoughts on that, but now I seem to have let it go out of the wayside. So I'll see if it comes back to me as we're talking.
Obviously, people experience this stuff on a different level. You have, like you mentioned, all the clairs that you have at your disposal to separate fact from fiction. But for people that are just getting started, is it best to start with yes, no questions and figure out what your body gives you for a yes, and what your body gives you for a no, until you can start to trust your feelings? And then that, you may not hear a voice talking into your ear. It may be more just your thoughts that are popping into your head, or that's the way that they present themselves to you. But I think it might have been Tyler Henry, a famous psychic, who says that he can separate the feelings because he gets memories that aren't his, right? And
that happens to me too.
I would imagine, right? So
yes.
He says that, yeah, that's how I get it. I get these memories that aren't mine. So I know there's no way that I could know this, but I do. And so we all know how memories present themselves in our head, right? So is that kind of what that ability is? Are the thoughts that are popping into your head? It's not somebody that's going to be like, all right, Mike, here's what we got to do today. Today, you're going to get up and you're going to go grocery shopping and you're going to get these items and then you're going to go to the bank and transfer. It doesn't work like that, right?
Or you're going to have to grab the paper towels because you're going to need them. Maybe sometimes it does work that way.
Right. Maybe sometimes it does. But you're probably more into it than a lot of people are. I've been eyeing my coffee cup ever since you said that, because I'm like, all right, I gotta make sure that thing stays right where it is.
Don't mess with the coffee cup.
Right. So, I mean, is that one of the challenges, is figuring out, okay, how your intuition interacts with you?
Yes. So there are tools that you can use that are outside of your intuition, that are basically intuitive tools to help you develop your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Primarily, I think before you can use any of those tools, having this meditation practice is like the foundation. If I had to say one thing, I would say meditation. If meditation is not an option for you, if you have a really hard time even closing your eyes and allowing yourself to think, and that's scary for you, there are other things that you can do. Now, some of them have some negative thoughts about them out in, the modern world. But I will say that a lot of that is fear-based, like religious-based, or maybe you've seen something in a horror movie that just put this idea in your head that it's not safe.
Yes, you're talking about tarot cards. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, it's one of them. And it doesn't have to just be tarot cards. There are things called oracle cards. In fact, I have tarot cards right here. These are like angel cards. And again, I have no tie to this. I'm not selling it. I'm just telling you that there are other things out there. But there are angel decks where you can actually ask your guides, and you have to ask your angels to intervene. But if you use a deck that's oracle cards or tarot cards, I mean, there's plenty of them there. These are called oracle cards. So you can see oracle cards. They don't have to be just tarot cards. But if you ask your angels a question and then use the tarot cards, even if you're using the actual meaning from the book that it comes with, I use them intuitively. For me, when I use tarot cards, I could look at a cereal box, or I could look at a piece of art, and just start to get messages in. It helps me maybe lose focus and focus on something else where I can start to get visions and the things in. Like, and that's what Tyler Henry was saying. Like, the greatest gift you could give to a psychic medium is validating what they're seeing, because it means nothing to us. We're just seeing a scene or getting information in, Billy Bob, and we say it out loud, and Billy Bob means nothing to us. We don't know any Billy Bob, but it's that other person that's like, oh my God, that's my dad, So it's the greatest confirmation that you could give. But going back to this, if you could talk to your angels and say, look, yes or no, or you can get different decks that say yes or no. And we'll talk about another tool that's good for yes or no's in a second.
I've got one.
Oh, yeah?
Yes,
so the pendulum. I was just going to show you the same thing.
Yep. So
I have one too. I'm going to go grab it.
I got the pendulum, and I'll wait till you get back. So I've got that, but then I also ordered some of these. I don't know how well you can really see it on the thing, but it's basically like a coaster that has yes, no, maybe, and rephrase. And so the theory is that you hold this, ask it questions, and then your subconscious will start to move this. And people say, well, no, you're moving your hand. It's like, absolutely, I'm moving my hand, but I'm not consciously moving my hand. It's my subconscious that is communicating through this. And I can tell you a quick story about how I used this last week. So I had surgery a week ago today. And it was
How
through
are you feeling?
Great. It was just a minor elbow surgery. But a couple days before the surgery, I have insurance through the VA, but I was doing it at a non-VA facility. So I needed to have approval for this surgery. And so I did a tarot reading, and one of the cards that popped up was the message delayed healing. And then I'm like, delayed healing? What the heck is that? So then I get a call from the surgeon's office that says, hey, we haven't gotten the approval yet for this. We need to get that, or we got to cancel this surgery. So I went into panic mode. That was on Wednesday for a Friday surgery. So come Thursday morning, I still didn't have the approval. So I was making calls, all these things. So then I pulled out my pendulum and asked it, am I still going to have this surgery? And it said yes. So I'm like, well, it said delayed healing, but then it also says yes. So I don't know what to make of this, but both things ended up to be true, because it really messed up my psychological thoughts on, oh my God, am I going to have surgery on Friday or not? And then I was laid to rest a little bit by the pendulum saying, yeah, you're going to have the surgery. It's going to be all right. But because the card was, what am I going to deal with today? Or what do I need to know today? It was a 1-card draw, and it mentioned delayed healing. So I was like, there you go. You don't always know it at the time, but then it makes sense.
So are your listeners intuitive, or should we explain that? How to do that?
I think that explaining it is always a great idea.
Okay. So let's talk about the pendulum first, since we both have it out. So the pendulum is a great tool for yes or no, like you said, but you don't necessarily need to have the board. You can actually ask your pendulum, and it changes any given day. Pendulum, please show me yes. And then you see, I don't know, I didn't move my hand, but you could see that it's starting to move, right? Or, okay, so, and then you say, thank you, pendulum. And then, can you please show me no? And then you wait to see, what does the pendulum do? And did it change direction without me moving my hand? Yes. Okay. So sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's going back and forth brightly, but you can do things like that. And then you ask it yes or no questions. Another thing that you can do, I have this little vase that I think is really adorable, but when you want to know the answer to something, maybe that's a number. Okay. You can even ask it, okay, well, pendulum, how many days is my surgery going to be delayed? And you listen to see how many times does it hit the bowl. And maybe it does it 3 times or whatever. So you can use the pendulum doing that too. And you can use a glass, doesn't have to be a little vase. It could be like a glass or whatever hits on something. That's another option for a pendulum. Now with tarot cards, I love that you said, what do I need to do today? That's the basic thing that you can do, right? There are different tarot spreads. You could put the cards in different arrangements, and there are plenty of things out in the world of Google that you can find to help you do that. But what I find best is when you're trying to start developing your intuition is to get a journal for tarot cards. And I actually have one here. This is just one example. And this is huge. You can get ones that are much smaller, but basically it'll tell you, this is like, for example, you can do a 4-page spread. Can you see that?
Sure. Yeah.
So a 4-card spread, Then you just take your intuition and see what comes through. And there are different ways to do it. You could do a 3-card spread. Okay. You could also do a 2-card spread, or you could do maybe a yes or a no, or what do I need? What did I need to know? And what's going to happen in the future? So you can say, what do I need to know today? And you can do a 1-card spread. Okay. So basically, when you get this journal, you write down first what the card is, then what does the card meaning say? Maybe you look in the book, or maybe what do you get intuitively? What do you think about the card? And then as you're writing, that's also another tool that you can develop your intuition with. Is called automatic writing. So for the journalists out there who like to actually journal what happens in their day, simply writing down and saying to my angels, can you please communicate with me? Starting to write, you might start getting information in just by writing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that's
crazy.
another tool that you can
And you can also
use.
look back at that journal weeks later and be like, oh yeah, that's what that means now. It
That
didn't
came
make
true. Yes.
Right. Yep.
And then you might even see things that you predicted. It's pretty cool.
Leah, you're awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your gifts with us today and your time. And so I am extremely passionate about music. So I like to end every show with a question about if my guests, if you can share with me a song that has helped you heal, that you can go back to, whenever you're feeling in that bad mood that you're like, oh man, I'm just in the gutter today. Is there a song that you go to that snaps you right out of it?
I love music. I was raised a singer, and certainly music and dance and singing all help. And it depends on the mood that I'm in for the song that I listen to. But for my intuition, since we're focusing on that today, I like to listen to different hertz music. And I don't know if you know the different hertz, but like I particularly love 852 hertz to enhance intuition and connect, or I like 963 hertz. And you can go onto YouTube and they have all of these different hertz music that you can listen to, and each one is very good for different things. I actually have a list here that I keep nearby that tells you what the different hertz are if you would like to go through that. And if not, I understand.
I don't know that we have time now, but if you wanted to email that to me, then I can post that. And I know YouTube is
Absolutely.
loaded, things along those lines. So, well, to my listeners, thanks so much for listening today. If you'd like to continue the conversation, please follow Recalibrated Mind on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you would like to discuss how I can help you one-on-one via coaching, please check out recalibratedmind.com. Thank you so much, Leah. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.